There's fast food. There's even slow food. But how about future food?
We should be concerned about the future of food beyond simply what it will taste like.
Future farmers are manipulating light for indoor farms.
Our motto is a photon is a terrible thing to waste.
One day your hamburger could be grown inside of a test tube, and your next snack could be one of these creepy critters.
It kind of just tasted like fried bread or something.
What's the future bringing to your dinner table? We'll find out in this week's episode of Earth 2050.
Hi, I'm Joe Penna, and welcome to Earth 2050. I'm at one of the premier food emporiums in the country, the famous Reading Terminal Market here in Philadelphia. The amount and variety of food here is simply incredible. Believe it or not, food is something that futurists spend a lot of time thinking about. Why? Because in the year 2050, global food needs are going to rise by 70%. So, just as food production shaped much of human history, it's also going to have a huge impact for our future.
What technology and science enable us to do is notice the damage from year to year to year, the things we're doing to the earth. And this, in turn, enables us to say, what do we need to invent next? What do we need to invent to solve the problem?
In the next 30 years, the world population will grow by more than 2 billion people. That means that we'll have to think a lot more about food and where it comes from.
The food that we eat requires energy, it requires land, it can potentially have an impact on the environment.
And increasingly, there's less and less available land for farming. The effects of a global drought and the population explosion are being felt right now.
The number of people require more resources than we have on Earth. So what that means is that many people don't have access to clean water. Many people don't have access to enough food.
Since the amount of available space to grow food is becoming a problem, some futurists have decided to find new places to grow food. I recently traveled to Texas to the headquarters of a company called Caliber Bio. They're farming inside of buildings. I'm standing in one of the country's largest vertical farms. It's 150,000 cubic feet. So why do scientists decide to grow things this way and not this way, like it's been done for a long time? Well, for one, it saves a lot of space. Believe it or not, it saves a lot of energy too. What is vertical farming?
Okay, vertical farming refers to the most efficient use of space to grow the plants. So we have to think in 3 dimensions, not just 2 dimensions.
The vertical farm is all about efficiency. By growing inside, crops can be produced year-round.
A vertical farm lessens the transport distance required to transport food, so for the end consumer, that price can be relatively low.
And the vertical farmer can do what farmers have wanted to do for centuries. He can create and control the conditions to grow his plants. In a vertical farm, there's no drought. There's no flooding. There's no sudden freezing temperatures that can kill off crops. And the sun, or in this case, small LED lights, can shine all day and all night. But why is that light pink?
Our motto is a photon is a terrible thing to waste, or light energy is a terrible thing to waste.
The light all around us is known as white light. But it's really made up of a spectrum of 7 colors. That's what we see in a rainbow. Those colors generate unique levels of photon energy. Plants only really need 2 colors of that spectrum: blue and red. And that's what makes for the eerie pink light. And it's why these farms are sometimes called pink houses.
If you just give plants red light, they grow really tall and spindly, and then they fall over and they don't do too well. If you give them just blue light, they're really short and squatty. And so something in between gets the plants just right.
Vertical farms also use very little water. Just a fraction needed in a traditional farm. They do it by recycling.
We sterilize that water, remineralize it, and reuse it. So there's actually less water used in this entire building to grow plants than there would be in a fast food restaurant use in one day.
Oh, wow. It's incredible. Even NASA is going vertical, and not only with their rockets. They're taking the vertical farm to space.
If we want to go to the moon, we want to go to Mars, we want to go to an asteroid, we have to get into resupplying ourselves, becoming more self-sufficient in space. So that's where plants come in.
And in space, they're doing it the same way vertical farmers do it here on Earth. This could be the future of the food revolution. If almost any place can work as a farm, pink houses could be the regular part of the urban or even lunar and Martian landscapes well before the year 2050. Coming up on Earth 2050. The stuff in this high-tech freezer has nothing to do with saving the leftovers.
One of our primary purposes is to provide food security for this country.
It's no secret that nature can pack a devastating punch. Every year, hurricanes and typhoons can wreak havoc all over the world. Tornadoes kill hundreds of people and level thousands of acres. Volcanic eruptions send tons of ash into the atmosphere. And the planet takes a hit from us as well. Scientists say that cars and factories are fueling the kind of climate change that could transform the planet forever. Between humans and Mother Nature, the world can sometimes be a dangerous place.
On Earth, we've got a magnetic field and an atmosphere that shields us from cosmic rays and ultraviolet rays. You take that away and we die pretty quick.
In fact, some people are so convinced that a cataclysm is around the corner that they're preparing for the worst. They're building underground bunkers and stocking up on food. But in Colorado, scientists have developed a different way to prepare for the future. They do it in a place that looks like an office building. Inside is a huge storehouse of plant and animal samples from all over the world.
We have a large collection here. We have close to 1 million different collections of seed here.
Officially, this place is called the National Center for Genetic Resources Preservation. Unofficially, it's called a gene bank. And it was created to make sure that there's a living record of the crops and animals we eat to survive. It's sort of a modern-day version of Noah's Ark. And like Noah, scientists here are making sure that the stuff stays safe. Why? Because you never know what could happen next.
One of our primary purposes is to provide food security for this country.
Like human beings and everything else on the planet, our food sources have evolved over millions of years. Since we started domesticating animals and growing plants for food, that process has sped up like never before. Those modifications tell a story. It's the history of how our food sources have evolved. And just in case something goes wrong, having that history on file could be vital to our survival.
We're collecting all of this resources in order to be able to protect ourselves.
In the event of war, catastrophic climate change, disease, or really any number of things that could affect the food supply, the samples in the gene bank can help us bounce back. Scientists say that the key lies in something called genetic diversity.
Think of genetic diversity as the family tree of the foods we eat. And the gene bank is the place where we keep that tree alive.
Genetic diversity is what plants have been able to do to adapt to their environment.
Since these samples are all living, they can decay and degrade. And to keep that from happening, scientists turn to the deep freeze, a process called cryogenic preservation.
Cryopreservation is the storage, the preservation of cells at very low temperatures, below minus 140 degrees centigrade.
That's about 250 degrees Fahrenheit below zero. As cold as it gets on the dark side of the moon, the side that never sees the sun. And how do samples get that cold? They're submerged in a bath of liquid nitrogen.
Essentially what's happening is we're stopping all cell movement when we do that.
Nitrogen is a gas, but when it's this cold, it turns into a liquid. It's so cold that anything that touches it freezes instantly. This frozen flour shatters like glass. But inside these chambers, nearly 1 million samples are kept alive until they're needed.
When we warm that sample back up, the sample becomes, or the cells become rejuvenated and functional.
And being able to do that is a lot more important than I realized. So important that governments around the world spend billions of dollars making sure the food supply stays safe.
I love my job. I think we are doing something that is so important for the future. I think we're doing something that is intellectually very interesting. What we're trying to do is extend life for a long time.
Coming up on Earth 2050.
Some people refer to it as the Frankenburger.
The test tube burger makes its debut on international TV.
We are here to witness a world first.
What's for dinner? It's the question that's asked all over the world nearly every night. The answer is almost always some sort of meat. In fact, the average American consumes about 250 pounds of meat every year. That's about 3 times the amount eaten by people in the developing world. But that's changing fast.
Meat consumption in India and China, both places are expected to more than double over the next 20 years.
And this growing appetite for meat is having a huge impact on the planet's future. Nearly a quarter of all greenhouse gases are the result of meat production. Nearly 3/4 of land that's used to grow food is used for meat. Critics say that things have to change.
We have to have a new, more sustainable way of sating our appetite for hamburgers and chicken nuggets.
What if we could satisfy this craving with tasty, nutritious meat that didn't have to be killed or didn't graze the countryside bare of vegetation because it was grown in a vat?
And that's what scientists in Europe are currently doing. They're growing meat in laboratories. The developers call it cultured beef, and they say that it's going to revolutionize the way that meat is grown, sold, and eaten.
It tastes the same, it has the same quality, it has the same price or is even cheaper. So what are you going to choose?
So how is it made? Tissue samples are taken from the cow, and the muscle cells are separated, placed in a test tube where they do what cells do. They divide and make more cells.
Scientists are at the point now where they're able to duplicate the kinds of proteins that are in beef to kind of mimic the flavor and taste.
The process is still in the development stage, so much so that by 2013, only 1 test tube burger had been produced.
Good afternoon and welcome.
It was unveiled at an international media event staged in London.
And we are here to witness a world first. This will be the first time a burger made with cultured beef has been cooked and tasted.
Josh Schonwald was one of only 2 journalists called on to participate in the event. As the studio audience looked on and the TV audience watched at home, the burger was cooked. The TV host asked the question on everyone's mind.
How safe is it to eat? Because there are concerns, obviously.
Right. Well, it's as safe as regular beef. If you produce the tissue and you end up with the same tissue as beef, there's no reason to assume that it's going to be unsafe. So you can just start to let people eat it.
Where I live here in Los Angeles, there are places where you can get a cheap burger all over the city. So will places like this be serving test tube beef anytime in the future? Probably not, because a single test tube beef patty costs $400,000 to produce.
And this first test tube burger, the prototype, was 5 years in the development before being unveiled at this event.
There were millions of people literally watching me take a bite out of a burger.
What did it taste like?
The texture, the mouthfeel has a feel like meat, but the bite, feels like a conventional hamburger. It tasted okay, not bad. It was a very bland burger.
If all of it goes according to plan, cultured beef will be available for regular consumers by the year 2050, if not sooner. And it could be just the beginning of using laboratories to grow our food.
And why would you turn it down if it was good? It comes to you guilt-free. No animal suffered, no animal was slaughtered, and no animal laid waste to a pasture. It sounds like a win-win.
Coming up on Earth 2050, another beef alternative, edible insects.
Cheers.
They're really crunchy.
Yeah.
A group of Western tourists approach a food stall on a street in Thailand.
Real.
This is local Thai.
They're looking to eat something a little strange and unusual. They hit the jackpot when this vendor offers up a variety of exotic dishes, all featuring bugs.
1, 2, 3. Not that bad.
It kind of just tasted like fried bread or something.
Yeah, to these tourists, bugs are creepy, crawly, and generally yucky. But to most of the world, they're also tasty. And they could have a huge impact on what and how we eat as we approach the year 2050.
I think it's a very, very important source of their nutrition in many of the third world countries.
In fact, for an astonishing 80% of the world's population, crickets, worms, and a whole host of other insects are a regular part of the diet.
West Africa, you can get bread made from termite dust. In Venezuela, they eat French fried insects. In Mexico, in Oaxaca, grasshopper tacos are a delicacy.
I recently traveled to Austin, Texas to meet with the insect-eating trailblazers at World Entomophagy.
What is entomophagy?
Entomophagy is a formal word for eating insects. Ento means insects, and then phagy means to eat. So it's a scientific way of saying edible insects.
Bug as food proponents say that we're all going to be eating bugs by the year 2050, if not sooner.
Why crickets? Why not beef or pork or chicken? What's wrong with that?
So if you're raising cows or pigs or chickens, they use a lot of resources. They eat a lot of food, they need a lot of water, they need a lot of land, and they make a lot of waste. They make a lot of poop. Crickets, not so much.
Just like animal farms, there are bug farms as well. This farm in Louisiana has been in the bug business for more than 50 years.
I think it is gaining some acceptance here in the U.S. We have more people ordering our product for restaurants, especially on the West Coast, for different dishes. It's still a novelty. It's a huge market.
It's a 7-day-a-week operation.
We are definitely a working farm, and we have officially been designated an agricultural business by the state of Louisiana.
A cricket has a life cycle of only 8 weeks. That means that you can grow them fast. Oops. I like to pride myself on a willingness to try just about anything. But I wasn't so sure about bugs as food. My new friends in Austin took it upon themselves to convert me with their favorite recipe.
What are we cooking today?
So we're just going to make a very quick saute with some crickets. It's a very, very easy recipe that anyone can replicate. It's the best way to make use of them on a beginner's level.
I figure I'll take it one step at a time and leave the cooking to the experts.
Throw some green onions in there, just to get it a little started. And then we've got a serving of crickets right here.
So how does a serving of crickets compare to, I don't know, like a little bit of beef?
It's got a lot more protein and a lot less fat.
The whole dish takes less than 5 minutes to prepare. 5 minutes for me to get ready for the moment of truth.
All right, let's try it out, shall we?
Let's go for it.
After you.
All right. I'm gonna go with 4 or 5 of them right there.
Not bad, huh? All right,
crunchy.
Let's try it out.
Make sure you get some onion on there.
That's delicious. It's a little bit like, I give you some, not quite peanuts, but some other type of nut. I can't quite place my finger on it, but it's good. Finally tasting bugs was a big surprise and a pleasant one. Once I tried them, I got over what insect eaters say is the biggest obstacle to bug eating. They call it the ick factor.
These little guys, they look freaky, and most people, you know, in our culture, when they think of an insect, they think of the pest. They think of stuff that's dirty and gross and, you know, invading your kitchen. That's not these. These are grown in a safe, hygienic environment.
So what's the downside? None really. Bugs are safe, they're nutritious and pretty easy on the planet. And that's why proponents say that by the year 2050, and if not sooner, some of the creepy crawly things that we used to run away from in our kitchens may actually end up on our dinner plate.
Hi, I'm Joe Pena, and welcome back to Earth 2050. It may be a while before test tube burgers come to your dinner table, but even critics say that it's on its way. Almost everyone agrees that with the population booming, test tube meat or something like it is pretty much inevitable.
Okay. We are staring ahead at a future in which the Earth simply doesn't have enough capacity for the projected population growth.
What happens in 10, 20 years? Are people eating crickets?
I may be optimistic, but I think, you know, in 20 years, 30 years from now, I think most people will be eating insects in some form.
So maybe insect eating is coming sooner than you might expect. Actually, it's a lot more common than you might think, so get ready. That's it for this week's edition of Earth 2050. Hope to see you next time.